A warm welcome to Disky Talk with Leon. If you're tuning in for the very first time, I ask that you please subscribe and hit that notification bell. If you've been a part of this journey, I hope you thoroughly enjoy this episode. So, on today's episode, we discuss all things original Soweto Derby as Orlando Pirates take on Swallows. So, before I get into the tactical preview, which is set for the extra time segment, I will start with two separate segments. The first segment being Swallows, having a look at them as to how they started with regards to Dstv Premiership football this season. Then the second segment will be Orlando Pirates, which then will be a great segue into our third and final extra time segment, where we have a tactical preview of the original Soweto Derby encounter, which is coming up in the next couple of days. So, let's start with Swallows. So, with regards to Swallows have, I'd say they've started well. They've won one and they've drawn one. So I'd say it's been a good start from a defensive perspective. They've kept 2 clean sheets, and whenever you do institute defensive changes and you see 2 clean sheets, then I'd like to think that you'd be happy, you'd be impressed with that. So in goals, they've gone with Virgil Fries, and the back four has been Matlaba plays off the right, so Viomere hasn't been playing. It's been Matlaba there, and then for the first game against Royal AM, they had Sight and Litlabika. But against Amazulu, they then had Sbia and Junaid Side also in the MTN 8. So it is sort of looking like Junaid Side and Sbia at centre back are the pairing for now. And then at left back, they've had Sasman. Sasman has been very consistent at left back. You know, he is tactically sound left back. So he's not that generic left wing back which will bomb forward and attack, but you know, he maintains his position. So against Royal AM, I must say that look, Swallows weren't really tested, if we have to be honest, you know, and it wasn't the greatest of games, you know, from a qualitative perspective. However, Swallows did manage then to snatch a goal at the death, courtesy of a Wambi strike, and so at the end of the day, that was the first game. Look, not much to write home about, you know. However, where they did struggle is in the final third, which is what we'll get to. And then in midfield, I've had a very consistent midfield three of Nyatama, the 2 number 8s in Cheeseboy Mukwena and Matlo. So I've been impressed with their midfield. I think they've progressed the ball really well. Against Royal AM, they were dominating proceedings, very comfortable on the ball, how they progress the ball through the consolidation phase and work it into the final third at times. So I think in the midfield, they've been very solid as well. And Matlo really complements the 2 midfield experienced players in Nyatama and Mkwena. He offers lots of energy and is also very strong. But going forward, it's going to be interesting to see if they do fit in a given Tibedi, especially considering how good he is and how well he did for Swallows last season. This is a player that they should be looking to integrate and build the team around going into the rest of the season. And then up front, it's been very consistent. They've had Rusei Gamildien, they've had Solomons who starts off the right, and then they've had Undlovu who starts off the left. So the front three for me, look, from a goal scoring perspective, they've lacked, you know. It's only been Gamildien, their source of goals. So they've been heavily reliant on Gamildien with regards to box entries, final third penetration, and being the one then who gets those shots on target. So when you look at Solomons and you look at Dlovu, yes, they've stepped up. You know, they're now playing in the Dstv Premiership. So to a certain degree, I think they've struggled and they're still adjusting to life within the Dstv Premiership. But final third cohesion has been lacking from Swallows as You know, they've only scored 1 goal in 2 games. They haven't created too many chances. And in the MTN8 fixture against Pirates, it was all Gamildien. So that's where the biggest issue is with this Swallows side, you know. And that's when you have a look at players like Mwape Musonda, Saleng, and Maghalwa, who could potentially make a difference, especially Mwape Musonda, who is a goal getter. So he's a player that I would be looking to sort of fit into the side. But the qualm then becomes that from a balance perspective, tactically they might be unbalanced because Brandon Chuter likes to institute his traditional 4-3-3. So it becomes very difficult then to fit in a second striker. But that's what I would be looking to do because Swallows really, really need to start scoring more goals and they need to be a lot more clinical in the final third and create more chances as well. And that's why I mentioned a given Tiveri coming back because in the midfield three, yes, Matlo is industrious, he works hard, but he isn't as creative as a given Tiveri, you know, and you need that creative outlet, you need those penetrative passes into the incision phase from the consolidation phase, which is what given Tiveri is also very good at. Also a very good deep playmaker, so he can start from deep. He progresses the ball up very well. So that's more or less how Swallows have looked. And look, Swallows have signed quite a couple of players, so they have a plethora of options. So at any point, if Brandon Chuter wants to institute something different, he can switch it up. But the two positives so far, I would say, is that they've been defensively solid. And that's earned them the 2 clean sheets. And they're playing really good football. It's just the final third. And that's where the biggest issue is for me when it comes to this Swallow side. However, then, let's move on to Orlando Pirates. And with Orlando Pirates, the first 2 encounters, it was Stellenbosch, where they played at Orlando Stadium. They played to a 2-2 draw, where, from a qualitative perspective, it was mediocre. You know, it wasn't the best of games. And I think Stellenbosch in that game could have easily won the game by virtue of the fact that Nyawuza got the red card and Stellenbosch had an advantage. You know, had they pressed on and looked for that goal, I think they would have won that game. But they managed to get a point from that. And then they went on to play against Marumo Gallants, where they instituted their new system of a 3-4-2-1. And as we do know, Mandla Ncigazi and Fadlu are the 2 men at the helm. So against Marumo Gallants, look, they were very good on the ball. They moved the ball around really well. Triangulation, passing patterns were good. But final third, that's what's missing. You know, we want goals. We want chances being created. We want box entries. We want final third penetration. And that's what is lacked from this Orlando Pirates side. And but I must mention that they've had the break now. So hopefully there's certain things that they have worked on. And coming back into the DStv Premiership, I mean, they restart the DStv Premiership against a very difficult side, a side that is defensively solid, and they play beautiful football as well. So it's going to be very difficult for Orlando Pirates. But when you have a look at their new system that they're going with, so it's a 3-4-2-1, and in this 3-4-2-1, most notably, let's use the game against Marumo Gallants because that's where we started to see it sort of come to fruition, and we have a better picture of what's happening, you know, because that was the second game where both Ncigazi and Fadlu were together at the helm. So in goals, they had Ofori. The back three was Mabaso. He started as a right-sided centre half. Happy Jele was the libero. The left-sided centre half was Hlatwayo. And then left wing back was Dion Hotto, which, look, to a certain degree, I think that could be his best position. I think he's better suited when he plays in vertical zone 1. So he can sort of make that whole wide channel his own and do as he pleases, you know. Do as he pleases because he's got all that space. He's a player who loves to run. And then, in the heart of midfield, they had Musele and Kanyiso Zungu. And then as a double pivot, but with Musele obviously being the defensive midfielder and Kanyiso Zungu being the one who institutes play from deep areas whenever they build up play and in consolidation phase. And then as the right wing back, they've had Wandile Shandu from Maritzburg. Look, I think so far so good with him. Whenever he has played, he showed what he can do for this Orlando Pirates side, and he's created chances as well. So I think then it bodes well for him when it comes to competition for this right wing back position, because we do know that there is Wade Euster as well. And then they went with a two of Kabelo Dlamini and Pule, and then they had Mhango up front. So that's what it looks like it's shaping into from a formation perspective. And that's what they look to approach games with. It looks like it's going to be 4-2-3-1. And like I've always mentioned on Diski Talk with Leola, that I think that Pirates are perfect for this system because of the personnel they have, the types of players they have, the types of wing backs they have, the types of playmakers they have, and the types of deep laying midfielders they have, and the defenders they have as well. I think they're better suited to a back three. But just a special mention, Mtetwa has gone out on loan to Chippa United. So personally, I'm disappointed with that, because looking at his profile and looking at his age, I think that is a guy that you'd want to more or less be looking to institute and integrate into Orlando Pirates, because he's comfortable on the ball, he's very tall, and he's a very strong defender, And when you look at the defensive problems that Orlando Pirates have, I mean, why not give him a chance, Give him a chance and let's see what he can do. And when we look at Ntsako Makubela, that's also a new signing, a player who can come into this system, who I think then would play as one of the number 10s if playing in a 3-4-2-1. Very creative player, very expressive as well, and very comfortable on the ball. He is a player that can pop up into any of the three central zones, and at times you will even see him in vertical zone 1 looking to cut in and play make. He is the type of player that brings so much, that Orlando Pirates midfield. He brings so much creativity, and look, Lodge has been missing, which is a player they miss dearly. I think once Lodge gets fully fit and they can have Lodge back into this side, I think it's a different Orlando Pirates look, and I think they could look to challenge, So those are just a couple of players who have been missing. Benjamin Mutsuari as well has been missing, a couple of players who could make a huge impact, and Lipasa as well, who gives you a different dimension to Mhango up front. So Orlando Pirates have players, it's just how does Mr. Mandla Ngigazi and Fadlu Davids, how do they put it together? How do they have a cohesive unit going with regards to this Orlando Pirates side? And what style of play do they decide on, and what formation do they decide on? I think they should stick to this 3-4-2-1, and when everybody's fit, I think it could work out for Pirates, because the types of players they have and the personnel as well. But let's move on then to the extra time segment, where we have a tactical preview of Orlando Pirates versus Swallows. So the red team will represent Orlando Pirates, and then the blue team will represent Swallows. So if we're to go with what has been happening in the past couple of games, Orlando Pirates will most likely line up in their 3-4-2-1. And as the right-sided centre-half, you got Mabaso as your libero, Happy Jele, left centre-back, Tyson, Hlatshwayo, and then in goals, Ofori. But I must note that anything can change, because we have had a 2-week break. So certain players could have possibly recovered, and certain players you find that they're doing really well in the training sessions, and the coaches are looking to throw them in. But that's what the back three would most likely look like. Musele and Kanyiso Zungu, just to mention. In the midfield, you could have Mutsuari coming in, and then left wing back, Dion Hoto, right wing back, Bandile Shandu. You could have Wade Euster there as well. And then the three up front, you got Mhango, Dlamini, Pule. But if Lodge is fit, he slots right back in. So that's what we're potentially looking at from an Orlando Pirates perspective with regards to how do they approach the game. So they've already played against Swallows in the MTN 8 and they were found wanting, So coming into this derby, I think they want to stamp their authority and to show them that, we're actually the biggest side in Soweto. Not that too many Kaizer Chiefs fans would be happy with that. Like, what? You guys are the Nah, never. So they want to show that when it comes to this derby, they are the biggest team. So it's going to be very interesting then to see how do they break down the Swallows team, because this Swallows team, from a defensive standpoint, tactically they're very sound and they're very, very organized. But when you look at Orlando Pirates and we look at how they look to play, so in the opposition of, it does get to a point where they overload certain zones. But the beauty of playing a wing-back system is that you can overload centrally, but still keep the width with Bandi Leshandu and then Dian Hoto, And then you could have Musele in there. You could have Mkanyiso Zungu just a bit more advanced. And then you could have the back three in there, So this is what they will be looking to do, But of course, it will be difficult because Swallows are a ball-playing side themselves. So if they don't get a hold of the game in midfield against the Swallows midfield three, then Orlando Pirates are really going to struggle. But this is what they could look to institute. And what I love about the front three is that it's very fluid. So Mhango sometimes will come, and then you find that Dlamini will go, Or sometimes Dlamini goes there, and then you have Pule, Mhango will come deep. So it is a fluid front three, which is difficult to pick up. I just think, though, at times it can become their undoing because everybody's then looking to play, looking to come deep, but you don't have a player then who's occupying zone 14 and who bothers this defense, who's then looking to get those shots on target, who's then looking to get those goals. But coming into this one, I think for Orlando Pirates, the key player will be Mkanyiso Zungu, in my opinion, if he does start, especially when it comes to pulling the strings in midfield and pulling the strings from deep. And then Gamildien Mhango. And I say he's going to be very important because Orlando Pirates need goals. They need to start scoring goals. And he's the man that they look to goals for, But against this Swallow side, it's going to be very, very, very difficult because defensively they are very sound. And it's going to be interesting to see then how then do they break them down. And if off the bench, we look at players like Makubela, who can come off the bench and impact the game. Mabasa up front, who can come off the bench and impact the game. Those are just two players to mention. If Lorch is fit, you got three players who can come off and make a huge impact, And the key in Orlando Pirates winning this game, it's a midfield battle, If they can grab the game by the scruff of the neck within the midfield, I think they stand a very good chance. But it's going to be very difficult in that midfield. This midfield three of Swallows, they work very hard. So if you can overload vertical zone 2 and 4, which are the half spaces, and look to manipulate the ball well up into the half spaces and progress the ball into zone 14, then they've got an upper hand, So the two players who then I think will be key for Orlando Pirates, Mkanyiso Zungu from a midfield perspective when it comes to pulling strings. But I must note that he could also possibly not start, He's not a regular at Pirates, but he's one of my favorite players. For me, he'd be a regular. He'd slot right in next to a Mutswari or Musele and be the deep-laying playmaker, I think he's got so much quality. And then Mhango as well, Those are the two key players for Orlando Pirates. So let's have a look then at Swallows, as they normally line up in a 4-3-3. That's their traditional go-to system. So in goals, they've got Virgil Freeze. At right back, it's been Matlaba, Junaid Sait, Sibia, and then Sassman. But if Litlabika comes back, he could slot in the centre-back position for Sibia and partner Junaid Sait. That looks like the first-choice centre-back pairing. Although I must say that Sibia has been playing really well. And against Cape Town City, in the MTN 8 first leg, he did really well, even won man of the match. And he's managed to sort of break into the 11. So if he keeps performing well, he can actually stay in this 11, That's the back four. The midfield three, Nyatama, Cheeseboy Mukwena, Matlo. Very experienced midfield three. More so with Cheeseboy Mukwena and Nyatama. Matlo offers the legs and the energy, goes box to box. And he will combat for you in the midfield. That's what I like about him. And he also retains the ball well. And then up front, the three up front, you got Solomons coming off the right, Gamildien as the striker, and then you have Ndlovu, Ketuktula Ndlovu. So yeah, that's the front three for Swallows. And I think the Orlando Pirates is there for the taking. You know, firstly, when there's a new coach, well, not new coaches because they've been there, but when there's a new philosophy being instituted, you know, there are gaps there that you can target. So Swallows can really get at this Orlando Pirates side, and especially in vertical zone 4 and 2 for them, you know, because Orlando Pirates defensively aren't so strong. And this defense lacks when it comes to speed, you know. So at times, Swallows could allow Orlando Pirates to have the ball, invite a bit of the pressure so that they look to hit them on the counter. Because all three of these men are quick and are very good at playing in behind and playing on the counter attack. But at the same time, Swallows are also very good at keeping ball possession. So Swallows is, it's one of those teams that are near perfection when it comes to how complete they are. But I'll keep reiterating, the problem then is in the final third for Swallows, you know. If they can work on this in the incision phase and they can work on creating more chances, having the penetration and then looking to score those goals and also having more players who will be able to contribute, I think then they could be a very dangerous side within the Dstv Premiership, you know. But I think going into this one, Swallows have the upper hand, and the two key players, Gamildien for me and Cheese Boymkwena in the heart of midfield, with regards to his experience and how he'll be looking to put his foot on the ball and sort of help to progress the ball, retain and dictate terms as well in the midfield and create those chances for Gamildien as well. So it's going to be a very interesting encounter, but yeah, very, very interesting encounter, you know. So it's a big one, the original Soweto Derby. And when I look at this game, it's going to be a game that's going to be won in midfield. The team that manages to get control of the game within the midfield from very, very early on, I think they're going to win the game. And going into this game, I think Swallows have the upper hand. You know, they've been more consistent. Brandon Truter knows his strongest 11, and his philosophy and style of play is clear to all the players. The players are on board and they know what they're doing. With the London Pirates, look, they're still experimenting with certain things, so I don't think they've gelled as well as this Swallow side has gelled. So I then think that Swallows will win this game, and I think they'll win this game by 1-0. You know, they aren't a side that scored too many goals, and they don't concede much, you know, and I think that's when they will stifle an Orlando Pirates. It's going to be very difficult for Orlando Pirates to try breaking them down, you know. So, yeah, very interesting one coming up ahead. So, do let me know at home, what do you think of this encounter? Who walks away with the 3 points? Or do you see a draw, you know? I mean, they can also draw, you know. It's not just about winning. This is the league format. You know, so there's a draw, you can lose, you can win, you know. So, do you guys see 3 points going to Swallows or going to Pirates in this game? Or do you see them sharing the spoils, getting 1 point apiece? What do you guys make of it? Thank you very much for tuning in to yet another special episode of Diski Talk with Luyolo. Signing out.